welcome, Ritwik. Thank you for taking the time to come and visit us today. Could you please just give a brief introduction to yourself, where you're from, a bit of your background, what you were doing before you came to China?
Thanks, Michael, for having me here. It's always a pleasure coming back to school. So I came to school in 2009 and graduated in 2011. So before coming to China, I was a navigator. I was a sailor sailing in the big cargo ships traveling around the world. So I had seen pretty much and greater part of the world, traveled a lot, and I was thinking it's time to do something different. And that's the time I thought an MBA would give me a good opportunity to think through of what's next. And as I was preparing for my MBA, it was late 2008, and I had applied to few schools, but in the end it boiled down to choose between Wharton Business School and CEIBS. In ordinary circumstances, the decision would have been to go to Wharton, just given the heritage that the school brings, heritage and the name. But it was late 2008, just 2 months after Lehman Brothers filed their bankruptcy. So US was a bit scary place for me, so I decided to choose CEIBS over there. Now that 10 years have passed by, when I look back, and I think that was one of the best decisions that I ever made.
Was China a place that was sort of always on your radar in terms of a place that you wanted to sort of explore in terms of opportunities, or was it something that you only started to think about when you were starting to think about doing an MBA program?
Well, China was always in the radar because the first time I came to China was in the year 2003. Like I said, I was in a sailor. And if you have ever worked as a navigator in a ship, you must have come to China because most of the exports and everything is happening from China.
Right.
So before moving to China, I was in China briefly, many number of times. And every time I could feel the vibrancy and the fast pace of growth. But it never really occurred to move to China. So when we was looking at it, this was the only school which stood out from this part of the world, which looked somewhat insulated from what was happening in the financial crisis for the rest of the world. So I took the plunge then.
Okay. What was your experience like, or your first impressions, I guess, when you first came here as a student?
Well, first it was, I thought because I was in China for many times before I actually moved in, I thought I kind of know China. But when I actually moved here to live and in CEIBS, it was a completely different experience.
Was there anything about your experience when you first came here at CEIBS that kind of changed your impression of China in any way? Was there anything that was sort of very unexpected and kind of forced you to do a bit of a 180 or something?
I would say the importance of the language.
Okay.
Because before, when I was visiting, it was always for a day or two, and being a navigator, when you come in the ship, you don't really get to experience the place, though you believe that you are seeing the place, but you are not experiencing the place. And we thought that being international and knowing many other things, but not knowing the language is going to be making things easier.
Okay.
But in China, if China is a long-term play, there's no way around the language.
Yes.
Because that gives you the gateway to understanding the community, the culture and everything. Whenever you are using a translator or an interpreter to go through, you do not get that connect unless you are able to understand and joke in the same language. You do not build the bonds. So
you've been here sort of consistently since, or a little bit on and off since the time that you graduated from CEIBS. But was there anything that from your experience at CEIBS that kind of prepared you or sort of launched you into the next phase of your career here?
CEIBS has been the platform which has offered almost everything that has happened in the last 8 years or so. So my first job out of school, and given that I was a navigator, and I moved into a private equity investment.
Okay.
So this was a kind of a very major change for me. And it so happened that the chairman of the fund, he was in school for an executive talk where I met him, we kept in touch, and I ended up perhaps the first guy to have a full-time offer in our batch. Okay. So I got my offer to join him in the summer of the next year. Okay. So it was still about 8 months from graduation.
Okay.
Okay. It was informal. It was not through a formal interview process and stuff. So from there, one thing led to another. Then I got a call from one of the biggest real estate and entertainment company, which happens to be a very Chinese company. and my current partner is also happens to be my MBA classmate. We did most of the competitions and projects together.
Okay.
So his name is Vijay Chaudhary.
Okay.
So we did Innovate China together, and we were the winners. We did our ISP together. So basically through this we had a very good of bonding and working chemistry.
Okay.
After graduation, he went back to India to manage his family business. I stayed back in China to work at corporate level.
Okay.
But we always kept in touch, and we always thought there would be something that we can do together.
Okay.
So my current partner is from CEIBS. Then our latest venture, the VR Exports, which is a partnership with China's second biggest sportswear company, Xstep.
Yes. Yeah.
Those, the founding chairman and the senior vice president, both of them happen to be in the school's alumni.
Okay.
So to summarize your question, CEIBS provided me with the kind of know-how, the personal branding, and the business connections to reach wherever I am today.
Okay. So I guess 10 years or almost 10 years, I guess, now that you've been in China, there's a lot of changes obviously happened in this country in that time. What has it been like sort of experiencing that and being a part of that over the last sort of decade or so?
I think you can just feel the dynamism in the air, because in China, the country has been growing at such a rapid pace. People are moving horizontally, vertically, and diagonally. What that means is new opportunities are opening up.
Yes.
In developed world, if you are working in a big corporate and stuff, it has become almost like a vertical channel. Unless people above you are moving upwards, you are not moving upwards. Here it's a little different. People are moving horizontally, vertically, and diagonally. So opportunities are opening up in ways that you couldn't have envisaged. Okay. So for me particularly, I have changed quite a few industries. Okay. And over last 6 years, I have had 4 different jobs, and touch wood, they have been progressively upwards. So I was into new energy, then I moved into real estate investment, then I moved into kind of entertainment / culture, what they call it in China. Then again, I moved into new energy.
Yes.
And now I am investing in sportswear and smart home.
Okay. So my understanding is your current venture with VRX Sports and with Xstep is a bit of a kind of a cross-border business that you're running between China and India. Is that sort of, I guess, sort of the idea of kind of sort of doing international business or business between 2 countries? Did that interest kind of start maybe from being, you mentioned being a sailor and sort of traveling around the world? I guess that would have given you a kind of a unique perspective on the world and the way things sort of are working and are interconnected. Is that kind of where a sort of an interest in that kind of cross-border business started?
When I moved to China for MBA, so my background was very different, but one of the key niche was I was well traveled. And that's why I also did not go for an exchange, because I didn't need to travel to different parts or experience that. I have traveled to too many different places. And for me, China itself was that immersion program. So I did not go for my exchange during my MBA. And because of this well-traveled, so this cross-border thing was always kind of strength. And that's how it kind of developed. So when we were kind of exploring the opportunities that would be suitable for me and what would be my niche. So because I did not have a typical business background before, so I pitched as the cross-border specialist. Okay. That's what led when my first job out of MBA into the fund. Okay. I was doing cross-border investment of Chinese money investing abroad. Okay. Then when I moved on to my next one, which is Dali and Wanda Group, I was doing the same thing, Chinese money investing abroad. Okay. After that, I joined a listed company in the US. That time, it used to be world's biggest new energy company, listed in New York Stock Exchange and 2 of its subsidiaries in NASDAQ. It was overseas money investing in China. Okay. So this cross-border thing was always there. Okay. And based on that, being in China doing the investment, I saw which way the Chinese investment direction is flowing. Okay. Okay. And over last 2 to 3 years, India has been a very natural extension for Chinese companies, both from investment perspective and from market expansion perspective. Now, like I said, me and Vijay, we go back a long way. We had a very good working chemistry through different projects and stuff during when we were in school. Yeah. And he being over there, I being over here, it was a very complimentary thing.
Okay.
So then we decided that I was being in China among few of the Indians who has done cross-border investment and who can speak the language. I was getting a lot of queries from different industries and people about India. We want to invest in India. We want to do something in India. So in one summer, when I was back in India, I was talking with Vijay, all these perspectives, and he said that maybe we should start something on these lines together.
Okay.
And that was, I think, the summer of 2016.
Okay.
And 2 years down the line, we have started these things.
Okay. So let's talk a little bit about the sort of collaboration between Xstep and VRX Sports. So I think maybe first of all, for people that aren't familiar with Xstep, what is it and what do they do?
Well, Xstep is China's, I would say, second biggest sportswear brand.
Okay.
Their product lines are primarily sports shoes, sports apparel, and some accessories.
Okay.
The company is listed in Hong Kong since 2008,
okay,
with a market cap of close to 1.82 billion US dollars. They have more than 6,500 stores, physical stores in China. In China, they have come to a stage where now they think that they need to go out for further market expansion.
Okay.
And India happens to be a natural extension of that market. Now, our alumni, Mr. Lee.
Yes.
So he had, I think, reached out to the MBA office that he wanted to understand the market and explore and something.
Okay.
So one of our that time MBA director, who has been there in school for a long time, during even when we were studying, and she connected us, saying that maybe it would be good talking to me. So me and Leo, his English name, we met in Beijing.
Okay.
And we had a kind of a good discussion.
Okay.
And that time there was no discussion of any cooperation or anything, because honestly this industry is quite new to me. Before I was more into M&A, investment, bigger size projects.
Right.
But we had a very good discussion, friendly discussion, and after a couple of weeks he said that he would like to visit India, and if I have time, why don't I go with him?
Okay.
Both from the cultural perspective and the language perspective.
Right.
And I thought it would be good from kind of a more like an alumni perspective.
Right.
And also there's a lot of misinformed knowledge between these two countries.
Right.
A general average Chinese conception of India is quite different from what actually India is, and it applies the other way around as well.
Okay.
So from this perspective, I said, okay, let's go together.
Okay.
And Vijay, his family business is into real estate, commercial real estate. So he understood this industry of retail from the other perspective. Like his key tenants of his shopping malls would be the likes of Xstep.
Okay.
Okay. So he brings in that perspective.
Okay.
So I told Vijay that I am visiting with Leo and let's go for a market visit with him. He took out his time, fixed up some important meetings from with the players. Then we visited India for about a week, me, Leo, and Vijay. And after we spent this 1 week, or daytime it was like a market visit, means mall hopping.
Yeah.
And evening it was like drinking and eating. So after a week of fun, we basically came back. And then after a month of that, then we kept in touch, and Leo said that maybe we should do something together. We have the good chemistry. We believe that you guys know the market, and also being the CEIBS alumni, there was a natural trust factor.
Yes.
Okay. So we said that we do not know the industry. We would love to work together, but we are not sure how.
Right. Okay.
And Leo was like, we understand the industry, we understand the products and everything. We do not understand the market.
Right. Okay. So it's like leveraging your strengths on both sides.
So we said that then we'll do the front end part of the market, and the product, the supply chain, the operations you can take care of.
Right.
So me and Vijay, we went to their head office in Xiamen. We were received very well.
Okay.
And the lift lobby, it was mentioned CEIBS alumni, welcome CEIBS alumni, Ritwik and Vijay. So that strong CEIBS connection was there.
Okay.
And that was July of 2017. So we finally formed the company, and all this discussion went on for some time. And we formed the company in May or June of 2018. And in about 4 months, now we have the head office in one of better locations in Bangalore in India.
Okay.
We have 2 operational stores,
Okay.
and the third one is under process,
Okay.
which should be coming up in 2 months.
So I think you've hinted a little bit about this, but whether it's sort of a Chinese company moving into India or like an Indian company moving into China, you hear a lot of people talk about the importance of sort of finding a local partner that you can work with. Is there anything that you sort of experienced sort of firsthand yourself that you think sort of drives that point home?
Having partnership, this kind of cross-cultural, cross-border partnerships are both a good thing and a bad thing.
Okay.
For most of the companies.
Yeah.
Now, the good thing is you can expedite the process much faster. You can short-circuit your learning process and everything. But then some of the negative aspects also can be the kind of an expectation and understanding mismatch. Okay. So it takes a lot for these kind of partnerships to work out smoothly. In our case, I would say that it has been very smooth, because first, the whole thing didn't start with an intention of having some form of business partnership. It was a pure 2 alumni meeting, traveling together and stuff. It led from there. Okay. So there was that inherent trust factor. We have kind of relied on them for the expertise on the products, the supply chain, and then the operations. We just believe in the mind they know what they are doing.
Right.
At the same time, they respect on our feedback on the market and what are the things that needed to be in the market. There's still some amount of learning process that is happening between both, because right now in 4 months we have a team of about 25 to 30 people.
Okay.
Out of them, 6 people have been sent from Xstep head office to India.
Okay.
And for them also, India is a new cultural experience that they're adapting. Then most of the people, except one who is an MBA 2017 alumnus, whom we have engaged in this venture.
Okay.
And remaining are local hires who has never worked with Chinese before.
Okay.
So this kind of a cross-cultural learning is going on. It has its initial bit of challenges, but it's progressively getting better.
Okay. Is there anything that you think sort of particularly important to sort of look for when you're forming a partnership like this? Is there anything that if you go out there and you're looking for business partners to work with, whether it's in China or whether it's somewhere else, are there sort of a number of key things that you kind of look for in a partner?
I think the first thing would be to have a good chemistry.
Okay.
Because ultimately, this kind of partnerships, JVs, whatever you call it, is more like a marriage.
Okay.
Okay, and it cannot be a pure transactional.
Right.
Though the economics matters a lot, but even if it is making great economic sense, you don't want to be meeting a person day in, day out, or interacting with them whom you do not get along with.
Sure.
Because all those economic numbers, which looks very good on paper when you start it, if this chemistry doesn't work, the other things will fall apart. So these things need to spend a little more time to know that whether you like that person because it's not a one-off transaction. Right. If you are doing some trading, which is a one-off transaction, it's okay not to be having a very great chemistry.
Okay.
But for long-term thing, that's the most important thing.
Okay.
This is where I think my experience in China, the CEIBS platform, all of it comes very useful.
Okay.
So that I would say the first. And then second is what value you are bringing onto the table. Okay. So there has to be something of complementary. Both parties bringing on some value. Otherwise, you can discuss a lot. And if the value is not very clearly defined onto the table, or the other person doesn't understand what value you are bringing, this thing will eventually not happen.
Right.
So these two. And the third is, of course, whether it also makes economic sense.
Right.
So I would say these 3 are the factors.
Okay. Was there anything about the Xstep brand, or about the kind of success that they had in China, or even just the similarities between the Chinese market and the Indian market that sort of made you think that that this is a brand that could also succeed in India?
Yeah, so that was the kind of second part.
Yeah.
On the 3 parts that I mentioned. First is the chemistry, second is the value you are bringing, and the third one is the economic sense of it.
Yeah.
So this falls on the second part of the value of the brand in itself, the
Right.
products. So we visited the factory, we visited the stores, we looked at the product, we went back home in India, and we did some more background homework. And then we realized this brand has a lot of potential in India. Okay. Because this is a mid-market brand.
Okay.
Okay. So this falls between the likes of Adidas, Nike, and the local brands.
Okay.
And in Indian market right now, there's no strong mid-market brand.
Okay.
And at the same time, India in some ways are lagging in China few years. Depending on the industry that you would see, I would say anywhere between 5 to 15 or 20 years.
Okay.
So the Indian market is now evolving. People are aspirational. Then the middle class people, that bracket is the biggest and growing fastest.
Okay.
And the market on the Xstep caters to that market.
Okay.
So with the kind of population, the big growing middle class, the aspirational thing, I think Xstep will do great in India.
Okay. So you said you've now opened 2 stores, is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay. What are your plans for the next sort of year or next 2 years for the brand in terms of expanding in India?
So we are just coming back from India, where Xstep chairman, all the senior leadership, Leo, were there in Bangalore for an official announcement that Xstep has entered India with the opening of the 2nd store.
Okay.
And this was a question which was asked a couple of times by some journalists and also a couple of our own alumni.
Yes.
We had about, I think, 17 alumni, both Chinese and Indian, who participated in the opening launch event, which was a great thing. So to answer that question, we are growing very fast. Like you say, in 4 months of setting up the company, we have 2 stores, the office, the 3rd one is in negotiation.
Okay.
And we have not fixed a very hard target for ourselves, because when you look at Xstep's own growth in China, when they started the brand about 20 years ago, this is what the chairman, the way he answered is, they never thought that they will have more than 6,500 stores in China.
Okay.
Okay. So he'll say that we have to be ready to grow with the market. And in India, if you look at the market, you can only look backwards. It's very difficult to forward look at the market.
Right. Okay.
So we are prepared to grow very rapidly, and based on the speed at which we have grown, I think we'll maintain that speed.
Okay.
In terms of hard numbers, we haven't fixed anything.
Okay. So this isn't the only sort of recent venture, I guess, that you've been involved in, as my understanding is that you've also been involved in something around sort of smart homes that started up in the last year.
Yeah, so that was the original thing that me and Vijay, we had been working on.
Okay.
Until the Xstep thing came up.
Okay.
So also being Vijay's family is into real estate and construction.
Right.
So actually we had a consortium with a big Chinese SOE. It's a subsidiary of China Nuclear Engineering Corporation. But that cooperation was only on a project basis. So actually there was an article in school also, which was late 2016, early 2017, that we did something together with them. Okay. Okay. But that was on a project basis. And after that, we were thinking of starting up something which takes what has happened successfully in China and take that business model into India. Okay. And IoT space, Internet of Things, was very interesting for me and Vijay. And we thought we should be doing something in this space. Okay. And within the broader IoT space, smart home seemed to be the most mature business model. Okay. And which is kind of doing well in China. Okay. And China itself, the market penetration of that entire industry, I do not have numbers, but I would say less than 5%. Okay. And if you look at in India, that's less than 0.5%, I would say. So it made perfect sense to take that business model and do something in India. Okay. So we have worked on the platform for about 1.5 years now. Okay. We have also just recently launched it about 2 months ago. Okay. The actual platform. Okay. So basically with your mobile phone, you basically control your house wherever it is, as long as you have a connectivity with internet. Okay. So like switching off the lights, opening the door lock. If somebody is ringing doorbell, you will have a look. You can look from your phone. Okay. You can open or close the curtains of your house wherever you are. So basically, your control of your house is in your pocket, wherever you are. Okay. Oh, that's really interesting. It's sort of the kind of the vision of the house for the future, I guess. Yeah, in a way. And future is happening. Yeah, it's happening right now. Faster than we thought it would. Yeah. So I guess one last thing before we go, just in terms of your whole experience in China, being an MBA student, having worked here in China, having had collaborations and partnerships with people in China, is there any advice that you could offer to other people, whether they're current MBA students, prospective MBA students,
or anyone else that's just sort of thinking about coming to China to do business or to work, is there anything that you could sort of offer in terms of advice for people that want to take a similar path?
Okay, so I think, and I have been doing this mentoring activity for last few years, and I tell to most of my mentors and everything the same three things that I just told you.
Okay.
That when you are meeting people, I think it goes everywhere in the world, maybe little more in China than other parts of the world. Yeah. That when you are making these relationships or meeting someone, it should not be a very transactional meeting. Okay. That this is what I am trying to get out of this meeting. You are not in a business meeting. So this inherent trust factor is very essential. Okay. And with this, you build up the trust factor. In Chinese, I think the word is kaopu. This guy is trustworthy, he's sincere. Okay. Okay, this thing. Second thing, out of maybe 100 people that you meet, you may find maybe only a handful of people. I think even if you meet like 3 or 4 people to whom you bring some complementary value, I think the success rate is already very high. Okay. Okay. Because all you need is one good relation, one good partnership to start things. Okay. Okay. So the second point is, again, when you are meeting over a period of time, you see that with whom you have some complementary value. Okay. Okay. And when these things is there, then come to a project level, a partnership level discussion, and make a economic sense out of it. Okay. Okay. Yeah. So instead of going from whether it makes economic sense and then see whether you want to work with this person, first say that whether you like this person, what value he is bringing, what value you are bringing. If these two boxes are checked well, there's always something which will make economic sense. Okay.
Wonderful. Well, thank you again for your time, and good luck with your ventures in the future.
Thank you so much. Okay. Thanks for having me here.
All right.